Chapter 1: The Caged Sparrow. The air in the Ethelberg mid-tier educational sector always tasted of recycled hopes and antiseptic. It was the smell of the inside, clean, controlled, but utterly suffocating. For Malik, it was the scent of his daily torment. At 14 years old and 2 meters tall, he was a giant sequoia in a forest of saplings, a fact that made him impossible to miss and a constant target. His jet black hair, which he kept stubbornly untamed, and his unique, piercing crimson eyes were a beacon for both unwanted admiration and seething jealousy. "Look, it's the ruby-eyed freak," a voice sneered as he navigated the crowded corridor. It was Jax, a boy whose family held a modest but secure position in the inside, flanked by his usual sycophants. Malik didn't break stride. Do not react. Do not engage. The sparrow does not fight the wind, it endures. His father's teachings, whispered during the harsh, private training sessions since he could walk, were the mantra he lived by. A promise sealed in blood and honor. The ancient martial arts of their family were for survival alone, to be revealed only when death was the alternative. A shove from behind sent him stumbling forward, his heavy textbook clattering to the polished floor. Laughter erupted around him. "Clumsy for such a big guy," Jax jeered, stepping on the book. "Or maybe you're just as hollow as they say. All looks, no substance. How does a bottom feeder inside like you even get so tall? Steal rations?" The girls nearby giggled, but their eyes were on Malik, a mixture of pity and fascination. This attention only fueled Jax's rage. Jealousy was a currency here, and Malik, without trying, was rich in it. "I'm just trying to get to class, Jax," Malik said, his voice a low, calm baritone that belied the storm brewing in his chest. He reached for his book. Jax ground his heel on it. "Ask for it nicely. Breathe. In. Out. The mountain does not crumble under the rain." Malik's mind flashed to the forms of Cage Roo, the shadow dragon style. A single, precise strike to the solar plexus. A subtle shift of weight to dislocate Jax's knee. A dozen ways to incapacitate the bully danced in his mind's eye, each a lethal elegy of motion passed down through generations. But they were ghosts. Forbidden. He released the book and stood up, looking down at Jax from his full, imposing height. "Keep it. The words inside clearly weren't reaching you anyway." He walked away, leaving Jax sputtering in humiliated fury. The victory was hollow. It was just another retreat. Another layer of patience applied to a soul already groaning under the weight of it. His home was a small, single-unit dwelling in the lower-tier residential blocks of the inside, a sterile, efficient cube. The hum of the geothermal generators and the distant, comforting thrum of the Citadel's central power core were the lullabies of this world. From the reinforced polymer window, if he craned his neck, he could see the upper spires of the outside, gleaming metal and crystalline structures that pierced the toxic, perpetual twilight of the sky. Up there, they breathed filtered air, studied advanced sciences, and practiced martial arts not as a hidden secret, but as a celebrated art form. They were the untouchables, the masters of this broken world. Below, deep in the bowels of the earth, were the underground. The misfits. They were stories told to scare inside children. No shelter, no education, fighting for scraps in the radioactive ruins and forgotten tunnels. To fall to the underground was a fate worse than death. "You are troubled, Malik." His father, Kale, was a man whose once powerful frame was now bowed by years of labor in the energy conversion plants. But his eyes, the same striking red as Malik's, still held the sharp glint of a master. Malik didn't need to answer. His silence was confession enough. "The bullies again?" His mother, Anya, asked softly, her hand, calloused from repairing enviro suits, resting on his shoulder. "They are insects," Kale said, his voice gravelly. "You are training to face dragons. Do not dirty your hands with insects. Our way, the Cage Roo, is not for posturing. It is the final argument, the last breath before the abyss. To reveal it is to invite destruction. The outside watches everything. They would see our art as a threat, a seed of rebellion. They would pluck it out, and us with it." "I understand, father," Malik said, the words tasting like ash. But that night, as he lay in his bunk, the frustration boiled over. He was a weapon sheathed in flesh, forced to pretend he was made of paper. He was a sparrow in a gilded cage, singing a song that wasn't his own, while outside, hawks circled. The breaking point came not from Jax, but from a glimpse into the abyss below. A week later, a mandatory, civic duty tour took his class to the edge, the great viewport that overlooked the surface. It was a lesson in gratitude, to show them the hell they were spared from. The sky was a bruised purple, streaked with venomous green clouds. The ground was a cracked wasteland of rusted metal and skeletal ruins. And there, scurrying like rats, were the underground people. They were wraiths, clad in rags and salvaged scrap, their faces pale and gaunt. A commotion erupted. An underground scavenger, desperate or brave, had gotten too close to the Citadel's external senses. A security drone, a sleek silver orb of outside design, descended. A warning shot of energy scorched the earth near the man's feet. The man panicked, running. The drone pursued, its movements cold and efficient. Malik's class watched, a mixture of horror and morbid fascination on their faces. Jax was grinning. Look at it run. Like a bug, he laughed. But Malik wasn't watching the drone. He was watching the man. He saw the raw, desperate survival in his movements. He saw a father, a son, a human being. And in that moment, he saw the fundamental injustice of their world, the outside, safe in their spires, playing God with lives they deemed worthless. The drone fired again. This time, it wasn't a warning. The beam caught the man in the leg. He fell with a silent scream that Malik felt in his soul. Something in Malik snapped. The patience, the promises, the fear, it all evaporated in the white-hot forge of his rage. Without a word, he turned and ran. Not away, but towards the service airlock adjacent to the viewport. It was an emergency exit, rarely used and lightly guarded. Malik, stop, a teacher shouted. He ignored them. His mind was clear, a river of ice. He input the override code he'd secretly learned from his father's manuals. The airlock hissed open. The toxic wind howled, biting at his skin even through his standard-issue inside suit. He emerged onto the surface. The air was thick, acrid. He was exposed. This was the reality the inside was shielded from. The drone, having completed its primary objective, turned its senses towards this new, unauthorized presence. It hovered, a predator assessing new prey. Back at the viewport, his entire class was pressed against the glass, their faces masks of disbelief. Jax's smirk was gone, replaced by stunned silence. The drone decided Malik was a threat. It fired a warning shot. Malik didn't flinch. He stood his ground, his 2-meter frame a dark silhouette against the apocalyptic wasteland. He took a deep breath of the poisoned air, and for the first time, he let the walls around his soul crumble. The drone fired for real. Time seemed to slow. Malik's body moved on its own, guided by 1,000 hours of secret training. It was not the brutish brawling of the schoolyard. This was a dance, a killing art. Cage Rue, first form, flowing shadow. He flowed around the energy beam, his movements impossibly fluid. The drone recalculated, firing a rapid burst. Malik's hands became a blur, his body contorting in ways that defied physics, redirecting the blasts harmlessly into the ground with precise, open palm strikes that crackled with kinetic energy. Cage Rue, second form, dragon's tail. He closed the distance in a heartbeat. His leg swept out in a powerful, low arc, not at the drone, but at the ground beneath it. He kicked up a cloud of dust and debris, blinding its senses. For a crucial second, the drone was disoriented. Cage Rue, final form, silent claw. In that single second of blindness, Malik leaped. He didn't have the powered armor of an outside enforcer. He had only his own trained muscles and ancient technique. His fingers, hardened by years of striking stone and steel, found a seam in the drone's armored shell. With a precise, explosive application of force, he dug in and tore out a handful of vital wiring. The drone sparked, whined, and dropped to the ground, dead. Silence. The only sound was the moaning wind. Malik stood over the disabled machine, his chest heaving, his red eyes burning like embers in the gloom. He looked up at the viewport, at the dozens of faces staring back at him in utter, profound shock. He saw Jax, his face a pale canvas of terror and awe. He had done it. He had broken his promise. He had revealed the dragon hidden within the sparrow. And as he stood there, exposed to the world and the watching eyes of the citadel, he knew one thing with absolute certainty. His life of quiet endurance was over. The cage was open, and the hunt had just begun. For in the highest spire of the outside, a sensor would have just alerted its master to the emergence of a power not seen in generations. A power that could challenge their absolute dominion. Chapter 2: The Unraveling.